Hello, it's Matt here from tennisprofits.com, and I'd like to share with you our latest updates to the Tennis Profits membership site, which have gone live this morning. So without further ado, let's take a look. Put my glasses on so I can see. So I'm on the stats.tennisprofits.com, the match stats homepage. Let's just select WTA for now, and we've got this we've got an WTA 1000 tournament. Now when you select a match to look in more detail at, you may not immediately notice any difference, but in actual fact the player names are now clickable. So let's click on Aryna Sabalenka. This now opens up a new player page that looks a little bit like this. I'm just going to get my head out of the way, and let's talk through what's on here. So there's a lot of information on here that you can find on the match stats page, but on the match stats page it would compare Sabalenka with her opponent, in this case Potapova. But on the player stats page, you can compare a player against the tour average for any given stat. So let's just walk through this. You can see at the top we've got a bit of personal information about Sabalenka, her surface ranks, highest career rank, and so on. And then we've got the chart that you'll be familiar with her ranking progress over time, which you can sort by surface if you'd like, and then below that we've got four what we call accordion sections, which open out or close back up, for last 10 all surfaces, last 50 all surfaces, last 12 months all surfaces, and this year all surfaces. So they are all they show the data for all surfaces, not any specific surface. So let's look at the last 50 all surface, and as you can see, as with the match stats pages, you can look at the official rating, our ATP surface rating, or both. I've got this on surface rating for the moment, and you can see that well, as we know, Sabalenka doesn't lose very often, and that's reflected here in the match stats. Clicking on any row will bring up the match stats for that particular match, again, as you're probably familiar with from the match stats pages. So that's the top section. In the lower section, the filters area, we've got the usual statistics again that you're familiar with, but the red and green numbers this time are a comparison with the tour average. Now let's talk about this for a bit. So in this case, I've selected the clay surface and main tour. So, and here I've got service hold, Sabalenka 75.5% service hold. That is 23.6% above the main tour, the WTA clay average surface hold. So Sabalenka is obviously a demon on serve, not quite so good on return. So you can see her return points is just slightly below the WTA clay average, but obviously as the world number one and number two on clay, she is an exceptional player and performs accordingly on the stats. So you can see all these big green numbers. Now we've got a couple of other buttons that we've added in the filters section, so you can hide if you don't want to see the how the 75.5% number is made up. So this is the last year, and in the last year Sabalenka has served in 208 games on clay on the main tour, and she's won 157 of them. But you can hide that. You can just have the percentage and the difference to the tour average. And then when we're talking about the difference, we've Paul and I had a what is a very rare professional disagreement on this, and the way we resolved it was by agreeing to publish both numbers. So when I look at a percentage, I want to know the relative difference to the average, and Paul wants to know the absolute difference. So the relative difference is this percentage divided by the tour average percentage. So player stat divided by tour average. The absolute percentage is player stat minus tour average. So in this case, the tour average would be 14.4% absolutely below 75.5. So 61.1, the tour average. And we can verify that by going to the metrics page and selecting Clay WTA service hold, and you can see there that it's 61.1. So 61.1 plus 14.4 makes 75.5. Obviously you can choose which of these you prefer, relative or absolute. Paul prefers absolute, I prefer relative. The website will remember your selection, so if you won't have to change this every time. As with these above, whatever your previous settings were will be recalled when you go to another page or look at another player. So I think this information is really interesting and very helpful. It's obviously important to compare player A with player B when you're looking at a match, but if you just want to look at players in isolation and understand their kind of strengths and weaknesses, this is a really good way of seeing those things at a glance. So these are the new player stats pages. As I say, they're all available from within the match stats. Just click on the player name and you'll get that data. We have made a small change to the match stats pages as well, in line with what I've just showed you on the player stats pages. So if we scroll down to the filter section, you'll see that we've got some extra boxes here, some extra options to review. So again, I'm on Clay Main Tour 1 year here. I'm just going to hide the stats breakdown so it's a little less cluttered or busy. And so now we can see that on Clay, on the main tour in the last year, Sabalenka is dominant on almost every stat, certainly in the top section. We can include the tour average comparison as well as the player versus player comparison. So these numbers relate to, in this case, Sabalenka's dominance over Potapova. But if we click this show tour average comparison box here, you'll see some new numbers appear on the left and right hand side, and these are the player's stat compared with the tour average for the selected filters. So in this case, we can see, as we know from looking at the Sabalenka's player page, we can see that she performs above the tour average for most things, but not for return points won. We can then look at her opponent Potapova's numbers, and we can see that in quite a few areas she performs below the tour average. That's helpful context if you're looking at player versus player. Obviously you want to know how they perform against each other, but it's also useful to know how they perform against that tour average. So, and again, you can do relative or absolute here, so those numbers are there, and that will be all of the information that you need. So this is a small but I think quite an important upgrade in terms of bringing players' individual performance to life somewhat. Here's Potapova's page, and again you can see there's quite a few red numbers there suggesting that she's underperformed the tour average in the last year. And yeah, I think that's pretty useful stuff. What's coming next? So the next thing that I think we're going to look at is, I feel like the men's and women's stats pages could be a lot better than they are. We could do a lot more with these. We could give you a lot more information. We could make them more. You could look at the rankings of players by their service performance and so on, in a much easier format, I think. So that's something we're going to look at next. But for now, I hope you enjoy the new player pages, and I hope that the additional information in the filters section will be useful to you. If you want to turn it on or off, it's from this show tour average comparison button here. So you can show and hide that information. And again, if you want to switch between the relative percentages, the player's percentage divided by the tour average, or the absolute percentage, the player's percentage minus the tour average, then you can do that here. Okay, that's enough for this video. Matt Bisogno saying thank you very much for watching. Thank you for being a Tennis Profits subscriber. I hope this is valuable new data and information for you, and I can't wait to see how you get on with it. Bye for now.